What is going on? I'm mad. I don't know about y'all, but somebody snuck in here, built a cage, and they didn't film anything. Yep, I'm upset. Nothing we can do about it now. We're gonna keep moving, I guess. Can't believe it. Okay, it was me. I did it. In order to make some stuff happen, I went ahead and jumped on this cage, got it all framed out, off camera, just to get some progress happening on this thing quickly. But we are gonna take time today to dig into the rest of this cage. I've got some stuff I wanna add on to the back. Let's get into it. I also had to do some work here. You can see I've got these big heavy gussets in the back. These things from where I cut the wheel wells out were already starting to flop around. And the Scout 800s are actually pretty notorious for the end caps kind of breaking away from the floor and kind of getting a little wiggly. So we cut these gussets, and I actually attached a little tie down point in the back. We're gonna add various tie down points throughout this rig as we're building it. I think the first thing we're gonna do is bend up a bar back here. I'm gonna kind of bring it out and extend this back to about right here. Have a couple of down bars supporting it. And then we're gonna do a full overhead X as well. Do a couple of cross braces in here. Getting pretty serious on the cage. This thing is all 2-inch, 120 wall DOM. A lot of times I'll build these cages out of 1 3/4 yard W, but with the likelihood of this one really getting thrashed and being in some sketchy situations, wanted to go a little bit heavier. So yeah, let's dig into it. I actually have a 50-inch piece laying there. May not be able to extend it back quite as far, but that's okay. Yeah. $11.5. So probably a good time to go ahead and mention that we did not get accepted to what used to be, what was known as Ultimate Adventure, now Unreal Adventure. I mean, that's just kind of the way it goes. You build a rig, you have to be accepted. There's a whole process. And realistically, like, this rig's nowhere near done, nowhere near tested. I think the rigs that they have selected that made the Dirty Dozen are definitely a good, solid group of rigs that have been tested and are well sorted. I think that's definitely what they were looking for. We're gonna apply again next year. That gives us all this year to get this thing finished, get it dialed, get it tested, get it in the rocks, shake it down, and give us some serious seat time and make sure that we're, you know, prepared and ready. We're not gonna have a trail turd. It's good. Oh, yeah, we're good, boys, we're good. So that's money. Yeah, boy. Sometimes you just gotta look at it. Just gotta just look at it. Would you just look at it? Yeah, I don't know who came in here and built this cage, but man, they did a good job. Make sure we're flat. Tenth of a degree. Whoop. That's not good for it. Probably what we'll actually do is tack one side in and then get the other side adjusted accordingly. Probably be the smartest thing to do. That'll never hold. You ever notice that? The tacks you really want to hold? No. And then when you need them to break loose, never happen. That says that's us right there. Let's measure. 30 3/4. 30 3/4. Angle finder does not lie. Hey, you watching this video? I've had a lot of people ask me about merch, and I have t-shirts locally made, but shipping and all that stuff's kind of a pain right now. So what I've done is I've actually created a Printify shop. We've got the OG shirts. We've got this one in black and gray in all sizes. It's got the Old Iron Offroad logo in the back. I'm sure you're familiar with it because you see me wearing one in every video. I pretty much wear one every day. Actually, no, I do wear one every day. I'm gonna put a link down in the description. If you feel so inclined, jump over there, purchase a shirt. We're gonna be doing a couple more designs as well. We got a duck slayer coming up here pretty soon and a couple other cool little designs. So thank you. Now, one thing I do like to do as I'm building a cage is, as I'm bending tubes, I'll actually go ahead and bolt everything in place. You don't want stuff floating around. You want it to be exactly where it's gonna end up being. And I like to at least weld half of the tube with everything bolted down, because if you just tack everything up, when you pull the cage out, one of two things are gonna happen. Either tacks are gonna break and then you're left trying to guess where everything was or get it close, or when you finish weld it, it's gonna pull really bad and you're gonna end up with a cage that you've gotta push and pry into position. So get everything bolted down as you're building it and at least weld half of the tube if you can. I know some instances, like if you're welding in something with interior in it, makes it a little tougher, but if you can, if it's at all possible when you're building a cage, go ahead and try to weld out at least half of the tube as you're building it. I'm gonna go ahead and burn this guy in, and then we'll get a couple of bars dropped down to here, and then we'll start working on the overhead X. Well, we're far from done, but I think that's a pretty good start. We'll catch up with you in a couple of days. Well, imagine seeing you back here. It's another day in the shop, and Figure we'll get this overhead X dialed in. Let's get to it. Man, I tell you what, I don't know what is going on anymore, but some crazy person has been out here in my shop working on my truck again. And they don't turn the camera on. It's a problem. I apologize for them. Anyway, got a little bit done. Got a couple of tubes bent up, and I did take some time off camera to work on little tedious bits. We've got this guy right here. And if you've ever bent tubing, you will fully appreciate how painful making gussets and things like that, just coping these joints takes a ridiculous amount of time. So we've actually got a 90-degree gusset, which I didn't want to use plate steel. I wanted something that fit in there nice and kind of flowed with the build. So we've got some 90-degree gussets for the driver and passenger side here. We've obviously got two more we need to make for this side. And we also went ahead and bent up a couple of grab handles that are going to double as a grab handle and gussets for front edge of the cage, like so. The tubes that we have here are going to be for our console, and we've also got the dash bar in. Now we are going full-blown race car on this. We're not putting a full dash. It's going to be pretty bare bones interior. Everything's going to be on a switch panel, tube column, pretty straightforward stuff. And honestly, it's crazy because it actually costs more money to do that. I guess because you're buying race car parts. I don't know what the deal is. But what we have, those two tubes bent up over there, are actually going to serve as our console. We're going to have one that kind of comes down and sweeps back into here and attaches, and one on a little angle on the other side. So we've got a nice kind of a sloped area here for some gauges, and then switch panels. Another kind of drop down section about right here that's going to house our shifters and all that stuff. So I'm going to cut a couple of plates, and I'm actually going to get these guys kind of tacked in, and we're going to have to make a plate for right here to bolt or to weld the back section of that tube in. I'm probably just going to catch one of the old seat belt bolt holes. I like to try to use existing bolt holes when we can instead of having to punch more in places that we don't really need them. We've already got existing bolt holes. Try to use them if you can. So let's jump into that. Kind of see what we've got going on there. Passenger side is going to come straight back because the passenger side floor pan is actually narrower than the driver's side. So we want to make sure there's plenty of room for a seat on that side. So it's actually just going to be kind of straight instead of sitting at this angle. For steering wheel column, I'm actually using a Sweet Manufacturing adjustable steering column with a quick detached steering wheel. And this is all going to stay open. There's not going to be anything here on the tube except for one of their brackets. That's a tube support bracket that drops down and actually supports the steering column. I'm just trying to keep this, I'm trying to keep the interior like super clean, not cluttered up, like wiring's going to be visible. Everything's going to be easily accessible for service purposes later on. If you're ever on the trail and you have an issue, you don't have to take your dash out to get to wiring. Hopefully that won't be a problem, but just trying to plan ahead. Like I said, try to keep everything like total race car mode is kind of where we're headed with this. So I'm gonna get these two guys tacked in, and then I'm gonna see where they fall back here, trim them off wherever they need to be trimmed, and then we'll make a plate to weld them to on the back side. Boy, I am glad today is over. It's just been one of those days. Get some mental clarity regained on this guy. I've gotten kind of stalled. I'm kind of stalled on the cage right now. There's still a little bit to finish it up. I've got to bend up a gusset for this, and I've got to finish 2 tubes in the overhead and do a little bit on this dash part, but I'm actually going to take a break from the cage and we're going to work on some stainless stuff. I've actually got to make a stainless tube that's going to come from here over to the other side to connect the 2 exhaust manifolds. So I think we'll jump on that. Always, stainless work's always relaxing. So we're going to get started with this side first, and you know, pretty much we've already got the other side of the V-band flange in there. And what I like to do is just get a couple of these 45 degrees. I like pie cuts as well, but I'm gonna try to kind of figure out what we need to do to get under and away from the edge of the oil pan and the crank. Let me need a piece of straight. And then once I get these placed to where I'm happy with, I'll take a Sharpie and actually mark the edges, give myself some alignment marks, and then we'll tack them up on the table. Try not to drop this too low. That's going to be a problem too. If we drop it too low, it'll be below where our we'll end up crashing into the truss. So always a good time. Kind of like adult. It's a big boy puzzle. It's a big boy puzzle. Yeah, I like that. This one I can go ahead and mark out. This one's gonna be easy. You kind of try to start at each side and connect the dots. Let's get this tacked up. And honestly, the easiest thing I have found to help you mock up stainless pie cuts is blue painter's tape. It works well. Holds everything nice and tight. Makes life easy. I've got some fancy clamps from some stainless company out of Australia, and they work okay, but the problem is if there's any deviation, like in the thickness of like mandrel bends aren't true all the way through as much as you'd like to believe they are, and if there's any variance in the pipe, they don't clamp well. So this is kind of my go-to. Once we get everything tacked together, we will pull this back off and back purge and weld her up. Just like that. So fancy. So fancy. Brap. Yeah. Yeah, one piece of the puzzle down. We've still got, obviously, to do the downpipe, and we've got to make a dump tube for the wastegate back into the downpipe. So still a lot of exhaust work to go, but yeah, one piece of the puzzle. Man, it has been a minute. This past weekend was crazy. If you own an International and you weren't in Tennessee this past weekend, maybe 2 weekends, the weekend of September the 20th, whenever that was. If you weren't in Tennessee for the Harvesters and the Holler event, man, you really missed out. And you need to put it on your calendar. Jump over to Harvesters and the Holler here on YouTube. You can watch a video we did from 2 years ago, and it kind of gives you a little tutorial of what goes on in the event. But myself and family and Mike Moore and family and Mitch Hulsey and family, and a ton of other people that stepped in and helped. We really threw down. We had 128 internationals here in Tennessee, over 300 people for the weekend. Man, it was a really, really, really awesome time. And if you were here and you're watching this, we all thank you. We seriously thank you. From myself and everyone else that's involved, thank you. I hope you understand how grateful we are that you take your time, spend your hard-earned money to come hang out with us here in Tennessee. But this thing, man, look at her. Look at her. Just look at it. Just look at it. We got some more work to do. I'd really like to get this cage finished up. I've cut a couple pieces. We've got to finish up the X bracing in the back. And I've also bent up another gusset here. So I've got to cope that out and get that happening. And then the cage is pretty much done except for frame tie-ins. But at that point, I can work on those later. I can pull this guy out, get it painted, get the inside sprayed, get that back in semi-permanently. No, permanently. And we can move on to bigger and better things. Still got Turbski stuff to do. Got to finish up some plumbing. I've been laying underneath this thing studying like how I'm going to run a 3-inch piece of pipe through there. And it's not going to be fun, but we're going to make it happen. Anywho, let's get this cage wrapped up. It's hard to beat the hum of an old transformer welder. Anywho, overall cage is looking really, really good. I'm super happy with how it's coming out. So I coped these off camera, and I mentioned when I coped these what a pain and how time consuming it is. I've got 2 more to do, and I'll take you along for the journey. Show you what a process it is. Let's get it. So I think that's all we have for this video. We made quite a bit of headway. I addressed a couple of little odds and end things off camera. Ended up having to drop the trans pan, and I had to swap out the shifter shaft. The nut was still on it and the linkage was still on it. I tried to take it off and it broke. So got that fixed. We made the crossover tube for the exhaust and built most of a cage. I appreciate you at home taking the time to watch these videos. Make sure to hit the subscribe button, like, comment, and as always, enjoy.